Well, hello, Liberty listeners. Welcome to another episode of Liberty Road. Today, you guys get to hear from Azin Radsan Van Alebeek. And Azin and I met some time ago. We had a chat. We were introduced, I don't even know by whom, but we ended up having this wonderful chat about her history and our kind of Middle Eastern roots and why she was able to say my name so perfectly. And I'm excited for you guys to get to know her and her story and hear some insights that she has for us. Azin, thanks for being with us today.
Netta, thank you so much for having me. And
Absolutely.
And I'm going to do the shout out to the person who introduced us. And that might be actually part of the origin story or the path and the important path that we can get into in a bit. It's Kirsten Brady.
Yeah.
She attended one of your Liberty events. And yes, and she's like a Liberty Road, sorry, but I'll just call them Liberty because I like the idea of freedom. But liberty and freedom are two different concepts, by the way. But yeah, she after the event, she sent me an email. She said, I think you need to meet this person.
Well, I'm so glad she did. So first of all, just for some context for our listeners, what is it that you do? You're a co-founder in Emmeline Ventures, but tell us a little bit about what that is, and then we'll get into your history.
Thank you. So Emmeline Ventures is a early stage venture capital firm who has launched back in April of 22, so almost 3 years ago. Whole idea of a venture capital firm. We are on our Fund 1, which is a conglomerate. We bring together other people's money plus our own money, and we invest it in early stage startups. And the idea is we're doing this because we want to be part of the innovation economy, bringing solutions to our future that are necessary to us. And also, very importantly, because we want to make money for our investors and for ourselves.
Yeah. All very good reasons. I'm glad you guys exist. I have to ask, are you focused solely on investing in women?
My language on this is evolving, and it's I like to talk about our focus is on, and I guess you could say, yes, we invest in women.
Yeah.
But it is a larger way that I think about investing in women, because what we really invest in are tech-enabled solutions that support her overall health. And by her health, I'm specifically talking about her physical health, her mental health, her financial health, and her environmental health. The real important drivers of keeping her whole, soaring, and able to optimize all her gifts, right? And there is such an alignment between physical, mental, and financial health.
Sure.
Like there's so many studies. So by focusing on those sectors, and by having two women now running Emmeline Ventures as the general partners, as GPs, and having 80% of our investors are women.
Wow.
It is embedded in everything we do that we are investing in her, right? And what I didn't actually yet overtly articulate is every portfolio company that we invest in, they're focused on solutions that support her, right? What type of founders do you think we're finding?
Sure.
It's intimacy bias, so those are female founders. It's just a byproduct of the focus on the industries.
Intimacy bias. I'd never heard that. I mean, I can gather what it means, but is that a term of art that you use within your circle, or is it actually a term of art that is used within the venture circle or other circles?
Oh, you've put me on the spot.
Sorry.
No, it's good. And all the English was my first language, I believe. Yeah. My parents spoke, their native language was Farsi. They immigrated to the US in 1962. And, but they wanted my brother and me to learn English. So they spoke English at the time. That was what they did. So I say that to say English is kind of my first language, and I still make things up, right?
Yeah.
And I
I love it.
And I speak a few other languages, so my head gets confused. But I do think it is a term that is used within our circles, right? There's unconscious bias, right?
Sure.
There's things that you don't know that you're doing. There's conscious bias. And there's also, for me, the person who solves a problem is the one who understands the problem the best.
Of course.
Ergo, there's an intimacy with the situation.
Of course,
So.
of course. That's what I thought. That's what I thought you meant. But I
Yeah.
appreciate the definition by Azin, where whatever language it came from. I love it.
Thank you.
So when you talked about solutions for her, let me just close that part of the conversation.
Sure.
It could be that some of those solutions outside of the 80% could come from the male side of whatever. It's your goal, your mission with Emmeline and your partners is solutions for her, but sometimes those are going to come, those opportunities are going to come from a man.
They may. And I will say, with Fund One, we are truly focused on not only the solutions that support her, but also making sure that the founding team is strongly her as well.
Yeah.
So, but we are finding there are men in these spaces, male founders, all male teams who are building in this space. And what I see that as is they're understanding, not only is it a social imperative and it's an important space, and they might have the medical research to understand the tech behind the problems, but also because it's a lucrative business.
Yeah, I was going to say
sector.
It's an opportunity.
It's an opportunity. Exactly.
Yeah. And if we're the beneficiaries, then let's go.
Let's go. And I think we haven't even gotten here yet, but right, the idea that so many of these solutions have been underfunded, they've been under-researched, particularly the medical side, right? Like women's bodies haven't even been studied since maybe just 20 years ago. We haven't been brought into medical studies. We've been treated as little men. Well, we're not. And we react differently to diseases and medicines, and those studies have to be done. And so but it's not incumbent upon our gender only to solve this. Sure. It is a humanity issue.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Thank you for bringing us together for one cause. I love that. We're living in divided times. I don't need to say that, but whether it's gender or politics or whatever, and so exactly. It's nice to
and
to
for
hear
me,
that.
we're all humans. There are some core fundamental beliefs that I think we all hold. We all want to be healthy. We all want our families to thrive. We're invested in our children or our, those dear to us. And we might see slightly differently, but if we accept how much we have in common, I think we'll be better off.
Well, those are great words for somebody who's running this venture, literally this venture.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about, because for some, VC is like a big world that they just don't understand, and the assumption is either you have to be generating multi-million dollars before you can consider VC money being invested in your idea, or there are people who too quickly think, oh, I have a great idea on a piece of paper. I'm in the kind of ideation phase and I'm really looking for VC money. And maybe they assume that that's just a term for capital. It's versus a specific kind of capital. Can you just break that down for us?
Yes, and I really love that setup, Netta. The difference between wanting venture capital and understanding that fits into a larger framework of all different types of capital allocation. Because what I've noticed is venture has become such a desirable, sexy word. Everyone wants to get into this world. And yet it's so much broader. So the breakdown is, and I'm like, where do we begin?
Yeah.
Because part of me wants to go to the difference between private markets and public markets, right? And maybe I'll spend a moment on that. And Netta, you also in your questioning, I feel like the focus was more for startup founders.
Yeah.
But I think it's you in your audience, you will have startup founders, you have potential investors
Yes.
in this space. And then there's those people who want to be in the ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
And supporting. And those are three really important members, constituent groups here. So I hope very quickly there's a difference between private markets and public markets. Public markets are the stock exchanges that we read about every morning, highly liquid. Everyone has an opportunity to get involved. And there are established markets, established valuations set on the second, right? Private markets, and by the way, in the public side, and those are large established businesses who have history of earnings and product development. Before you get to the public markets, you have the private markets. Those are generally highly illiquid. There isn't a robust trading platform. Valuations are done with calculations and modeling and assumptions because people are setting that valuation. There's ways to do it. You actually are gate kept. There's the people who can get involved in private markets are only they must be by the government, by the SEC, they must be accredited investors. So you've narrowed who can play in these markets.
That's largely due to their income, right? Or
there's a few ways to define if you're an accredited investor. Income's one way, assets are one way, and also financial expertise. So if you can show that you have a Series 7, then you're allowed in.
Okay.
It's a club.
Okay. Thanks for that.
Sure. So highly illiquid, smaller companies they are the nascent companies that are just beginning, they're growing. They might have some revenues up to, it depends really, like it's all changing, everything's changing. 10, 20, 30 million of revenues, they still might pay, they're going to be private. And so venture capital comes in because we are fueling the growth of those companies at the earlier stages when they're born, when they're in product iteration, finding that product market fit, when they're getting their clients, when they're really getting that foundational core built. That's where venture capital comes in to help them build that. The types of companies that venture looks for, highly scalable, in really large markets, and generally with tech enablement to help that scalability.
Sure.
But what I tell founders all the time, there are many ways to build a business that don't require venture capital. And there are many ways to build a business that can be very successful, both because it delivers an amazing product or service and because it will generate great earnings for you.
Yeah.
You don't even need to move into the world of venture capital to do that.
Yeah.
It's a very specific machine, and you need to understand what that machine wants if you're going to enter into it. Is that helpful?
I think I think it's really helpful. Can you make one other distinction for us?
Yes.
Often, as I understand it, and as I've witnessed it with some people that I know who've taken on venture capital, there's two kind of groups. There's one group that relies on that business to manage itself, and they're truly just funding whatever. There's another group that tends to come in with management skills and helps to take it to the next level. I think there's room for both, obviously, depending on the team of origin. But I think it's important for people to understand that as a founder, where you feel like this is your little baby, and you're calling all the shots, that part of what you're looking for in potentially in VC funding is expertise that you don't have, is people to help you take it to the next level, not only financially, but from a management point of view, from a growth point of view.
Yes. And I would say yes. And
Okay. Let's go.
Yeah. And it comes, and so now we're speaking specifically about the founder who's looking for venture capital, for money from a venture capitalist, right? And almost every time I meet a founder, I ask them, I want to know, my advice to them is to understand what you want and what's important to you. What are your values in building this company? Where do you want to be in 5 years, in 10 years? What are your aspirations and intentions? Be very, very clear about that. So that goes back to my answer, thinking about venture as a machine. I know what I want and need. You better know up front, Miss Founder, what you want and need.
Yeah.
And it may be all you want is money and you don't want anything else. That could be true for you. All you want to do is work 24/7 for the next 3 years because you are committed to scaling this at extremely high growth rates. You want a big exit, you want to put money in your bank account, and you want to go sit on the beach. That could be your vision.
Yeah.
You could also be someone who says, I have these skill sets. I really want a team around me who is there to thought partner, to help introduce me to the next level of venture capitalists or the venture firms who will invest at the next stage. You might want that that support to introduce to customers, right? It's nice to have that nest or that advisory group. That could be you as a founder, and then you would look for a different type of firm. We're not all alike, obviously. We talked about it at the beginning.
Yeah.
So it's really important to know who you are, what you want for your business and for yourself, and to find the other firm that operates that way and to make that relationship. We joke about this often as well. Venture relationships last longer than most marriages.
Oh, wow. I would not have thought that, actually. I would have thought that it could be a very difficult relationship because what you both want is for growth in the company, and you both, everybody's wanting to make money. But it seems to me that the founder would be very precious about what they've created, and that it could be adversarial at times, but no.
Well, it can be. And that's what I think it can be, it shouldn't be, right? If
Yeah.
you do your work up front.
Picking a partner. If you do your work in picking a partner. Yeah.
Yeah. And my point is people spend a lot of time picking their personal partner, their spouse or their long-term partner. The same effort and diligence needs to go in picking who is on your cap table, who is funding your business, who has a hand in it. You can think about it. I imagine many of your listeners are mothers. And if you think about when you have your infant, your newborn, that's your baby business.
Yeah.
You don't just call any old babysitter off the street.
Sure.
Whoever's going to have their hands in molding and molding and nurturing this creation is someone that you should pay really good attention to.
That's great context. You
Thank
just
you.
set that up better than anybody I know, because I think you've helped us to understand how we come alongside and scaffold that baby. And so that means you need to understand the values of the person that you're partnering with, the values of the person who's going to help raise this child, right?
Exactly.
What are the different things that they bring into it that you don't have? What's the skill set that they have to offer? I love that.
Yes, that's perfect. Thank you.
No,
Yeah.
you were perfect first. Come on.
Thank you. Well, and Netta, and I don't know if you want to go here, but for your listeners, I feel it's an important aspect to share is I have this amazing position now as a general partner of a venture capital firm. And I will tell you, it's exactly where I should be based on all my past experiences, but it's also remarkable that I'm here. And
can we go there? Let's go there.
We can. I'm happy if you want to.
What is your past experience?
Well, how do you get here?
Yeah.
Lots of different paths to get to venture, which is great, right? Typical paths can be an exited founder who then uses some of their exit earnings to seed a fund. They have that operator experience. The founders will seek to them because they speak the same language. That's a typical path. Someone who's done other asset management, maybe in the PE side, will come into the earlier stages and fund, because it's way more fun if you ask me. It's where the excitement happens, and you can actually leave an imprint. So that, someone who's been in PE or other asset management will come into this realm.
Which is private equity, just
Thank you. Yes,
for
private
our listeners.
equity.
Yeah.
Yep. And other paths, former consultants is another path. Looking at businesses, also depending on what type of consulting they've done. And those with an entrepreneurial spirit, which I think I fall in, right? And I would say I am the accidental VC, is if you want to give me a term. I worked in consulting out of undergrad, where I studied quantitative economics. I was doing regression analysis, a lot of data analysis. In my first consulting job, I was doing regression analysis to understand, and one of the aspects is what I was doing was determining valuations for private companies.
Wow.
But in another context, but it's very much what I need to do now. Then I went to business school and I went back to consulting to the same firm, working with C-level executives and boards of directors. And I was married at the time, and unplanned, I got pregnant. First child born in Santa Monica, California. And we recognized with no family, it was really hard. It was really hard not having family around, not feeling comfortable finding someone to care for my child who had the same values as I did. And so I took a huge stop out from the professional workforce. We moved overseas. I had 2 more kids, and I reinvented myself as a stay-at-home mom and a corporate wife. And I'm very thankful for that opportunity. And at the same time, recognize that it took a lot of self-discipline, self-motivation, self-belief to ensure that not only did I enjoy the time and be the best mother I could, and by the way, I was voted least likely to become a mother by my high school class. So it was not in my natural skill set.
How funny.
Yeah.
Wow.
But in that time, I sought every opportunity I could when I had free time, and I made free time, to upskill, to stay relevant, to be in rooms that I was learning and being exposed to great ideas. And I was lucky too. I had responsibility. I took responsibility for our accounting, our investing, our tax, the projects that keep you involved with doing spreadsheets and thinking about numbers and the analytical skill sets. So
I love that you just shared that. We have a podcast that I think it'll come out before yours comes out. And the conversation is very much about this, what has been called a gap, right? A gap in our paid for work. And in the conversation, it was how do we shift this for women our age in particular, who were re-entering whatever adventure they're re-entering vocationally? How do we reframe that, and how do we have other people understand that reframe as it was non-traditional work? It was, we were still growing, we were still learning, we were still using leadership skills, we were still, I mean, my goodness, ask a mom who a busy mom to get something done, and it's done.
For sure.
It's done.
It's done.
It's done. And it's done well. And so I like that you just shared that, because here we could have easily walked away from this conversation thinking, oh my gosh, she's brilliant, and she's doing this. That too. And but not realizing that this story comes with having a non-traditional,
yes, there's a journey here, and I find that people don't talk enough about the journey and the circuitous path.
The Liberty Road. That's why road is part of the name.
Yes, thank you. And And so thank you for allowing me to bring it up. And I'm going to do a shout out, and I'll come back to the beginning of our conversation. I'll bring that in, why it makes sense. So in my household, I had all these opportunities for learning. And of course, school systems are so great to volunteer in school systems. And so there are a few projects, volunteer roles that I really pursued that continue. I lean back on those. And so one is I, on a volunteer basis, taught art literacy in the public school from kindergarten to 8th grade. It was an amazing experience to learn, to public speak, to pull together lesson plans, to distill lots of information into a few nuggets. Like a kindergartner's attention span and an 8th grader's attention span are both very small or short, but you have to deliver differently. And I learned different techniques that teachers learn. I mean, teachers are brilliant. So that was one really amazing volunteer role. And I also was actively involved in the PTA and heading either the classroom, or I was also, for 3 years, I was the head of the upper school PTA. So all the classroom heads, we worked together. And Kirsten Brady and I actually were co-heads for, I think, the 7th grade class. And then we did the senior class together too. So, so she and I have worked together for a few years.
And you're honing all of those leadership skills, and you're working with different personalities, and you're trying to get people on board for whatever the mission or the vision of what you're trying to accomplish is. And there's always people who don't agree with you, and how do you bring those people on board? And so you're all those things are being practiced. All of those things. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And everyone in those types of roles, everyone's doing it on a volunteer basis. So you really have to practice a soft power or use, the belief systems and emotional appeal to get people to work with you, because they can just walk away.
Sure, absolutely.
And you have to make it fun. So
yeah. So those skills, I'm sure, are hard at work in your role with Emmeline as well, because you're working with different personalities. Those soft skills are still required, even though there's kind of money on the table to when you're dealing again with this founder who everything is personal.
It's very personal.
You have to be able to massage all of that. On the flip side, you also have to be kind of disciplined, that's a good word, and really create some boundaries for that founder. And like, this is the sandbox you need to now play in. All the shiny things that you used to be able to like, oh, and we want to do this and that, and that's no longer the case. You are now responsible because we are partners, right?
Exactly.
In this venture.
Yes, that's a great articulation of it. Yes, and I would say for myself, I'm have finally become more comfortable to lean back into those past experiences and to bring them in and then adjust them for the new environment, right? Like, I can't be the mom.
Yeah.
I'm a general partner, right? But there is a good deal of overlap. I have to say, I remember as a mom, I read the book 1 Minute Manager. It's a great book, right?
Yeah, it is.
And I applied those techniques to my parenting. So there's very much, for me, a bridge or a link between how one manages her household and raises her children to how one operates in a professional environment. And I know that they're not equal, but there are some core foundational concepts that are similar.
Yeah. So you take all of this bundled learning and all of this expertise, what you learned, I mean, your education, formal, your non-formal education, and somehow you land.
And somehow, in the other overlay, how does that happen? Because it still doesn't make sense to me, right? And I would say my entire adult life, I've been an investor in the public markets. And then in 2008, a family friend, a white man, invited me into the room because you have to be invited into these rooms and said, come come learn about this angel investing group that I'm involved with. I had no idea what angel investing was. I don't think I knew, honestly, like that whole investing world was new to me. It's called alternatives. So the alternatives asset class, which venture sits in, PE, private equity sits in there, hedge funds, all these, like,
fancy
again,
words.
sexy, fancy words, right? And I'm so thankful to him because he was right. I thought, man, this is fascinating. So I joined the group. There were 50 of us who all bought one share into a pooled fund. And it was collectively, the 50 of us, that we would look at deal flow, groups would peel off in diligence. Collectively, we voted and we created a fund for that year together.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was my entry into this world. After that, made some direct investments, angel investments into some friends and family rounds, became an LP in some funds, a limited partner.
Mm-hmm.
And I got exposed more and more, and I recognized, ooh, this is really amazing because you can make great money. There's really interesting people, and I'm contributing to future building, not only like innovation and solutions, but also creating jobs, GDP, and that's it's tiny, but it's the butterfly effect, right? Like my little thing impacts something else, which impacts something else, or the snowball effect, however you want to think about it.
Yeah.
And so that's how I got pulled into the room, and I just started doing it and learning on the fly. Experiential learning.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, when you're curious and you're sort of expanding your own horizons, that's always what's going to be required, right? And that doesn't mean that not knowing should keep us from those spaces or keep us from those rooms. You very easily could have said to this gentleman, I'm so sorry, that sounds like complicated or too much. I'm gonna, as smart as you are, you could have said, I don't feel comfortable in that room. I don't even know what angel investing is. But you said, wait, I'm curious. I want to learn. I'm willing to learn. I'm taking a chance on myself. And lo and behold, I actually like this and I'm pretty good at it.
Yeah. And I will say, full disclosure, right? I sat in that room it was 50 of us. I would say 40 of them were men. The other 10 of us were some random assortment of people. Yeah. And I was intimidated.
Sure.
And I got my toe wet though, but it's true. You said two things that I want to double down on.
Yeah.
When someone opens a door for you, you need to walk in. Just walk in and take up space.
Amen.
So, and learn and feel and figure it out, right?
Yeah.
Because I think, and then the second point is, it is a generalization that I think there is truth to because I see it too often. And just last night, I was having a conversation with a woman who was teaching in a classroom and mentioned the same example. We women are way too hard on ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Way too hard on ourselves. We have so many skill sets that we develop across our different chapters, whether it's professional or personal. There's so much overlap, as I mentioned before. We are so capable, and yet we underestimate ourselves. And why that happens, that an anthropologist or a cultural a social psychologist, someone will answer better. And I say, so I don't know why, but I do know that we have to unlearn that.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm really trying to lean into, the idea of, I fit only 2 of the qualifications. That's okay.
Yeah.
I'll figure it out.
That's enough. That's enough. I can
enough.
move into that.
Yeah.
So when you talk about being invited into that room, I want to say too, sometimes those invitations aren't there. Sometimes we don't find, as women, and I'm going to go even as far as saying women in this age group, for who many see as like, go garden or be a grandma or whatever, go begin that journey. That's your next journey, right? Or we've got listeners that are in their 40s, which, that's
That's young.
that's very young. So that's still a long way away. And yet there's this 40 plus stigma with women that it's kind of like you missed your opportunity. And it's so not the case. And I would argue that this is exactly the right time because of all the things you just said, because of the earned experience, because of
Yes.
the you have more you know yourself more than you've ever known yourself. That it's complete. We're still learning. You know what you're interested in. You have curiosities that are sort of unfulfilled. There's this desire to keep growing, to keep branching out. You have a network that's larger than it's probably ever been. Like, this is exactly the right time to pursue whatever. This is not an argument for becoming an entrepreneur. This is to do whatever, to write that book, to whatever it is, start that
It's just
nonprofit.
to spark your
Yeah,
creativity.
yeah. But when we don't have invitations into those rooms because of all the things that I just said, what's your 2 cents on asking to be invited?
So,
with, with a big smile.
yes, I loved everything that you said up to date with this, and there were so many areas or avenues I wanted to follow. I would say, why do you need to be asked?
Hmm.
Figure out. It goes back to my advice to the founders: figure out what you want
Mm-hmm.
and just go after it. I didn't know that I wanted angel investing. I was lucky that someone thought it through for me and thought, oh, I think she'd enjoy this, invited me in. That was lucky. There have been other examples. There are other examples I can give you that I am very deliberate. I think about, what do I want? And I'm a firm believer now in manifestation. So I articulate it out loud
Mm-hmm.
to people and just out loud.
Mm-hmm.
I know what I want. I'm going to go after it. I don't need to wait for an invitation anymore. And that's what I think women across all generations need to understand. And I do feel that the younger generation already holds that.
Yeah.
And for those of us who are in our second or third chapters, we need to really embrace that idea. And as you mentioned, for all the reasons, I loved the earned experience
Mm-hmm.
phrase. And also, hormonally, we are changing as well.
Yeah.
And that change makes us actually be less concerned about caregiving.
Yeah.
And which, and I would say caregiving for others. It's time to focus that back on
Yeah.
ourselves and to really feed our own souls.
Yeah. I love that. I love so much that we have been created as such that we go through this season of being um nurturers, and that doesn't mean that's all we are, but it's
Correct.
this kind of natural part of who we are biologically. And then we go through this season after, where we are able to kind of disconnect a little bit and look inward. And I don't mean in a navel gazing way, I mean in an honest reflection way.
Yes.
And then say, what do I have? I'm in this wisdom season of life. What do I have to give back? What do I have to offer? What do I have that can expand this world and that can reach back to the generation behind me and make them better? And
Yes.
it's actually a brilliant season. Another reason what you just brought up, why
Yes.
this is such an important time for women. Um, so you somehow find yourself um, with
So,
another open door opportunity, or is this something you said, no, I want to get serious about this and I'm going to build something here?
so to loop it all together, how
Yeah.
all those experiences led to Emmeline,
Yeah.
I found myself, I'm going to do another plug for another group. It's called I Relaunch.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know
No,
about
I
them. It's
don't.
specifically for men and women, right? Who have taken pause and helping them to relaunch back into the
Oh,
professional
that's
work.
awesome. We'll include that in the show notes. That's awesome.
Great. And it's, if you've taken a 6-month, 2-year, 20-year, if it's for child care, your own personal health, adult care, parent care, whatever it is, right? we're vibrant, and for all the reasons we need to get back into the working world. So I found them, went to that, and recognized what is my next chapter going to be, and just with a few other women started meeting monthly to really coach each other and to think about what the next chapter would hold, and it all pulled together. And I joined a virtual boot camp weekend for angel investing, and it was a weekend, an intense weekend with a 10-week practicum experiential learning tacked on. I ended up working together with my two co-founders. And in that process, we started iterating, beta testing, evolving into the idea of Emmeline Ventures.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
so there's that, I mean, one, the manifestation thing that you said, which I think can be a triggering word for people. And what I love about the way you said it is, I'm putting it out there, I'm saying it out loud so that it can breathe, like life can be breathed into it. I'm not sure if I said that right, but it's when you state that. I also think there's something else that happens when you say out loud what it is you want. And I just posted something about it earlier this morning on Instagram, but it's this idea of a mindset that is open to it's open to what can be and what's possible. It doesn't keep everything sort of secret, or it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
protect everything. It's this idea that there's enough. And if we look through the lens of an abundant mindset, that we don't have to hold on to our things, and we can share it with people, and we can be open about it, and we can get excited about it. We can get excited about other people's things. And I think you saying it out loud, you signing up for iLaunch, you signing up for this angel investing group and meeting your two now
Co-founder.
co-founders is you saying all those things out loud, yes, but also having the mindset that there's plenty here, there's enough. I'm not going to give away some idea. I can incorporate it, and other people can walk alongside. And there is
Right.
no other Azin. Like, what I bring to the table is very unique.
Yes. And all of that, it's being open to all the possibility.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it definitely was a learning too, being open to failing
Mm-hmm.
in a public way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people like to use the word vulnerability. And it's very true. I can remember, I'm going to give you a story from when I was a kid and I got a skateboard. And rather than practice on our driveway in the front of the house where people on the street could watch me, I went to the backyard.
Yeah.
Right?
No
Like,
chance.
no
Yeah.
chance that someone was going to see me falling on that thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But now, every day I think I'm in the front yard and I'm doing things that I've never done before. And I'm just hopeful that most of the time I'm going to succeed, but I accept that some of the time I'm not. And again, another shout out, like a lot of this is mindset, Netta, and that's
Yeah.
why I love that you bring that in. The Roger Federer graduation speech in talking about specifically tennis, and I played competitive tennis, and so it rings true, and it helps me be a better tennis player as well. You have to accept you can win the match, but you will probably lose around 40% of the points.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's how you take that on the tennis court and you translate that to the world. I'm like, as long as the win side is more than the loss side, I'm good.
I'm good. Yeah. And which means I have to keep playing, right?
Exactly.
Which means I have to keep playing. So when you and your co-founders are sitting around looking at opportunities coming your way, what are the
Yes.
things that get you really excited? I mean, yes, there's the financial opportunity, right? This is super scalable. The market is big for this, the things that you said up front. But what are the things that really, like, this speaks to me, and
Right.
this is something I want to get behind?
Right. And let's go back to intimacy bias, right?
Yeah.
Like the things obviously that speak to me are the things that address a problem that I know, that I've experienced, that I understand well. And so I would say at this moment, what I have been looking at, that where I'm like, okay, I want to dig deeper, and I've been trying to find every single one, are solutions that improve menopause, right? Or the stage of menopause. What are the things that we need so that we thrive in it? And then with the idea of the advent of AI and the advancements of AI is looking at the intersection. How do the medical solutions that are addressing menopause, how are they augmented by AI, and how can that really go into deeper levels? So that is just a fabulous area. And then another area that we have been looking at, and it's such a difficult the problem to solve. I think there's many reasons why it's difficult, but for all of us who are mothers and working people, you understand that good childcare is a real critical lever to allow you to operate in both worlds well.
Yeah.
And that childcare has not been solved well yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
At any stage, right? And so looking at solutions that can improve that situation for all working parents is something that has been caught my, I'm excited to look for those.
Well, and it's part of your origin story. Like you just shared with us
Yes.
the decision that you had to make, right?
Right.
The decision that you ended up embracing and being grateful that you could make. We're also wildly aware that that's a privilege for many.
100%.
And so how do we create solutions that can democratize the opportunities, both for childcare, but then the opportunities that lead specifically women, I'll say, lead them into greater opportunities, into creating more wealth for themselves, into expanding their career. So, yeah,
Yes.
I can
Yes.
see why that would be I'm excited.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's different approaches to it. So we've invested. So the three of us as co-founders, when I remember I said we met at this boot camp.
Did you know each other before?
Hadn't met.
Oh, you literally met there. Okay.
We met on this virtual boot camp in the fall of 2020. We met for the first time in December of 2020 under COVID rules, 6 feet apart from each other. And but we, by March of 21, had formed an LLC, had pooled our own personal capital, and said we're going to build our own fund as a proof of concept fund, or there's different ways to think about it.
Yeah.
And we invested in 14 companies in that year of 2021.
Wow.
Yes. And that was the learning process, building the foundation to launch Emmeline Ventures the following year, in which we now hold 13 companies and are looking to invest in another 10 to 12 companies.
And all focused on what you had shared before,
Her health.
Her health.
Yeah. For me, it's easy. You can say, it's easy, short to say her health.
Yeah.
We like to also think about manage her health, build her wealth, and let her live in a cleaner and safer world.
I love that. You had said, and beautifully, by the way, because I wasn't going to go this direction, but I want to now. At the top of the conversation, you had talked about the kind of ecosystem of not just investing in her, but also this opportunity for our listener who isn't looking for money. She's not looking for capital, but she is looking to expand her own portfolio or even build a portfolio. This is all new. Maybe there's some words you've said today or terms that she's Googling as she listens. Where can she get involved? How can she get involved in this ecosystem of investing? We'll just keep it super, super basic on the private side. I think that there are lots of tools for her to learn how to invest on the public side and, and throw some dollars down for those Fortune 500 companies. But how can she get involved on the private side and find funds, angel or VC? And I don't think VC is open to her, but you can speak to that.
Right. Well, I'm going to start with a shout out for the documentary that I and many others, my co-founders are involved with as well, and some other incredible women and men, is a documentary titled Show Her the Money.
Uh-huh.
And we very deliberately got involved with this film. We're also cast members in it, is because it talks very specifically about how to bring more women into the venture ecosystem as funders, as founders, and as ecosystem members. And we premiered September of 22, I believe, and have been, I guess it must have been 23. And for the whole past year, we've, like, my years are,
Yeah, everything's combined.
everything's combined
Yeah,
now. I'm
yeah.
like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But we have been on a 100-city tour. I've been to over 30. We've been across the globe, in fact. And it's a great, great resource. You can stream it virtually. You can do an in-person screening. One of us from the team will come and be on the panel and talk
Wow.
about this. So I really hope that the listeners go learn more
Yeah.
about this
We'll
documentary.
include that in the show notes as well, for
It's
sure.
beautiful storytelling as well for a documentary on venture, which I had originally thought,
Yikes.
yeah.
How do we do that?
Hats off to Kai Dickens for just the beautiful storytelling that's engaging, and it warms your heart, it makes you laugh, it makes you cry. And for founders in particular, their story is up on screen. And kudos to Catherine Gray for producing it as an executive producer. So that's one way. How to get involved in venture specifically, as we had mentioned, most ways to get involved are going to require you to be an accredited investor. So assuming you are, and there are ways if you're not, there's some crowdsourcing, there's other ways, but I'm going to focus on if you're an accredited investor, ways to get started, angel groups. Almost each region, each city, major metropolitan area will have specific one to your geography. And many of the cities are building them too, because it helps, as I mentioned, it's job creation, right? GDP growth for the region. It's about bringing those tech players here and supporting them. So I would do a quick Google search for that in your region if you want to be regionally focused. Golden Seeds is a great program that you work collaboratively together. Portfolio is out there. How Women Invest is out there. So those are 3 groups that are primarily female focused, and there's collaborative working together. There's learning. There's community building. So those are areas to get started, and the minimum check sizes may be more attainable.
That was my next question, is what is the minimum to get in those
minimum
doors?
check sizes for those might be 10,000.
Okay.
Which might sound a lot, but let me remind your listeners, to get involved in a traditional venture capital fund, your minimum capital commitment, what you as an investor have to commit, and I'll say more in that in a moment, might be $250,000.
Yeah.
And that's like a low threshold for many of these larger funds. You don't write the check for $250,000 all at once, but it's called over time, over generally 1 to 4 years. A fund like ours, one of our core missions is to make venture more attainable. We have structured our fund size very deliberately in a way that we can accept minimum capital commitments from investors in the range of 25 to 100,000.
Oh, wow.
So again, much more attainable. And again, that's called over time. So you don't write a check for 100,000. We call 10%. So now you write us a 10,000 check. 4 months later, we call another 15%. So you write a check for 15,000. And so it's manageable. And I'm trying to think of another way, another good resource is in your city. If there's a university, a larger one, many of them have funds set up now that are focused on technology and businesses that are coming out of their community. I know that UCLA has an accelerator program. I know that ASU has one. Stanford has one. So it's it's taking all that knowledge from the university and monetizing it in companies.
Yeah. And we should thank you for all those resources. I also want to say, in the same way that you talked about the overtime investment in your particular venture fund and other ones, this is also not a quick turnaround. This is not a quick,
No,
you're not going to see your money, you know, over, it's going to
thank
take
you.
time, and it's an investment.
It's an investment.
Yeah.
And I have really, I don't know if we have the time for this, but I can go into some of the numbers and talk about how this works. Would you like to go there?
I'm wondering if we should try and do that separately, because I just looked down earlier. I was like,
Yes.
have we
Ah,
really been talking for almost an hour? But I think it's important, and I'd actually like to do it separately, or I would like to do maybe a Zoom class with you, like invite
oh,
people in so that they can ask questions, because
please.
I think there's so much curiosity and so much. I'm going to go in the backyard and try and figure this out because I'm too afraid to be in the front yard sort of mentality around it. People aren't asking questions. They're not raising hands. If they're in those rooms, there may be a level of intimidation. So I think it'd be great to offer that if we can.
I would be very happy to do
Okay,
that.
let's
And as a full disclosure,
yeah.
we're not raising funds at the moment, so it's not going to be a sell.
Yeah,
right?
there you go.
I'm all about information share.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that so much, Azin. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's end this part because you've given us so much, and I so appreciate it. And so many people are going to be liberated by what you've shared, as well as all the people that you're investing in, right? You are in the job of liberating these dreams. But what is it that this work specifically has done to liberate you?
This work gives me the liberty to not have to say, I could have been a contender,
Mm,
right?
wow.
I've entered the playing field.
Wow. That's it. I mean, that's everything. That's why we're doing what we're doing, so that more
Yeah.
women can feel that in whatever capacity, whatever that means for them. And again, this isn't about paid for work. It's not about career. This is about finding that thing, that North Star work, that true, like, I'm called to this. I was made for this. I belong here.
Yes.
Um, so you've inspired us to consider what that could be for ourselves.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us, Azin.
Really a pleasure, Netta. Thank you so much.
Of course.
I've been really enjoyed it.
Of
Thank you.
course, of course. And Liberty listeners, once you stop taking all the notes that from what Azin has shared, I just want to share with you guys that we will really try and get her back on, and we'll make you guys aware of all of that via email. So if you're not subscribed, make sure you're a subscriber to the email. And thanks for hanging out with us. We'll talk to you guys next time. Bye for now.